Welcome back to the Ultimate Decades Challenge. If you've been reading any comments or if I've been mentioning it in the videos, I have not played this save in months. I played too far ahead and then the update was coming out and everything, so I was like, Megan, you have to stop playing this save until you catch up with your videos. So that is what I did. I waited and I have been playing the Bridgeton Regency Challenge in the meantime, so you can see those videos are uploaded on Saturdays. And I mean, it's still a little bit before the last video of this airs, but I did want to make sure I had a couple of videos ready for you guys when it was all set. So because of that, I have not played this family in a while. I need a little recap, so I thought maybe you would like a little recap too, and then we'll just double check and make sure we have everything we need to start playing after infants. So I also updated the family tree. You can see I've grayed out the pictures of people who are deceased, which is really helpful, especially for the vampire roles. So let's go through the family tree and just reacquaint ourselves with some of the Sims we might not remember as well. So we started with Hugo and Estrid Bennett. They were the Lord and Lady of Henford on Bagley, and they had three children who were our starting Sims. Lord Hugo was given a minor title of Lord in a countryside village who was disappointed because his eldest daughter became a nun. And, there's nothing you can do about that because religion is important during this time. His son was his pride and joy as heir, and he was hoping that his other daughter would follow in his son's footsteps, but she disappeared with the gardener, so he disowned her. Estrid was the perfect wife, but she was very firm on making sure her daughter Alice could keep living in the fief despite being disowned because, she didn't want that to happen with um, her daughter. So we'll get into that. They both died of old age, which was really good for them. Actually, they were already adults when we started. So, anyway, let's go through each child's branch. So, we're going to go through Christiana's branch, Hugo's branch, and then Alice's branch. So, Christiana, if you remember, was the nun. She devoted herself to the Watcher. She actually helped raise Agnes twice. While at the church, she started to fall in love with a vampire, Caleb Vitor, and she decided to break her vows for him. The head priest tried to stop her from leaving, but Caleb killed him and then faked her death, so everyone thought she was dead. And they ran off to Forgotten Hollow and got married. And she did help with Agnes again later. So that's her love story. She unfortunately, both of them ended up being killed by vampire hunters at some point. They had so many kids. They had 8 children that survived to toddlerhood. And all of them were vampires, obviously, because these two are vampires. Many of them are unmarried. Esther did get married, but we'll get to that second. Ella is not married yet. Neither is Agnes or Regina, but Florian, who became a priest for a while, was also hunted down by vampire hunters. You can see there's a couple of little families here. We have Caleb the second and Jillian, who had two children, Caleb the third and Hildegard, except so she's a sim, so he's a sim and she's a vampire. Then we had Alice and Eric. So I don't know, should we explain his story here or over there? Let's do it over there. And they had a daughter, Clarice. Again, um, for the most part, we have moving wives' nodes to their husband when they get married. Then we had Henry and Margaret. Love you, Margaret. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. Several have died. He was a regular sim. He married Maybelle. We'll get back to, or should we get back to her stuff? I don't know. I don't know when we should describe stuff. But anyway, they have 3 children. So far, 2 of them are still alive. We have Gracia, who will marry out of the family, and then we have Charles, who married Millicent. She was adopted by a vampire family who wanted a playmate for their daughter and ended up getting married to Charles, who is part of that family. They have a son who is also Charles. So that's Christiana's little branch. Her branch is the smallest because, she was a vampire, so they didn't need to go down as quickly. They could just take their time and have kids. Now, Hugo's branch is huge. It's like all of this stuff. Hold on. It's all of this. So, Hugo, honestly, the name Hugo, the Hugo line, has not had a lot of luck. Hugo was the only heir. He was very kind. His mother arranged a marriage for him and her friend's daughter, Mabel. He didn't mind, whatever. Anyway, he went to church and saw Genevieve. Where is she? Nope, she's up here. I'm sorry. Genevieve. Ah. um, Now, he quickly fell in love with Genevieve, but she was the illegitimate child of another lord, the um, the Harlow family. They'll come up a few times. And so he knew he couldn't marry her because she was illegitimate. But as it turns out, his betrothed was actually pregnant with a knight's child, and it caused a big problem. And they broke up, and the family relationships were hurt, and all of that stuff. But then he was contacted by Genevieve's father, who, since his wife had passed, who was against legitimizing Genevieve, he was able to legitimize her, and then she was able to get married to him. So that was Genevieve. And funnily enough, so Hugo had originally been engaged to Mabel, but she went with the knight and he went with Genevieve, and both of them got widowed. And after that, they married each other again. So how funny was that? That they kind of came back together in the end. She died in childbirth, unfortunately. Yeah, her husband died in the famine, and then they got married. So he had, how many of these kids belong to Genevieve and how many? All right, it looks like up until the last three are all Genevieve's kids. Oh my gosh, there's so many children. If you remember Margaret, one of my favorite Sims of all time, Margaret actually did get married to Lord Harlow. She had two children, but only one of them survived, and her husband did not like that. So he got a mistress to bring in to have more sons. Um, but Margaret did not like that. So she took her son and she ran away. Good for her. She took his heir and she ran away. She ended up actually getting married to Harold, who is the half brother of Eric, who we'll see in the main branch. But they lived happily until they both died. Elric was Harlow's son, and he actually decided to become a priest, and he was adopted by Harold, and they lived pretty happily. We'll get back to him in a second. Everyone's kind of interconnected because I didn't want to make new Sims, so I had them like marry your distant cousin. Anyway, again, Hugos have such bad luck. So Hugo had three wives, all of whom died. Rohicia was the first. She was spoiled rotten. She was the child of a wealthy merchant. He got a deal where he married her in order to bring more money. She died giving birth immediately. Was this her child? Yeah. She died giving birth immediately to Etheldred, who ended up marrying Alice Walter, who was um, inherited in the Walter estate because his uncle never had any sons, which is kind of a common thing, it seems, with the Walter children to have a firstborn that doesn't have any children and the secondborn inheriting. So Morris actually married one of the vampires, Estrid. They both lived happily, but his brother, Harry, ended up inheriting the Walter estate. He married Estrid. She was sent to the orphanage after her father died. I think she's distantly related to them. We'll get to her node somewhere. They had two children, both of whom are dead. We will get to this total disaster later because this is now our main branch right here, supposedly, if the child lives. We'll get back to that. So the second wife of Hugo the Third is Wilmot. Her father, who was an earl, remarried so many times that she was the child of one of his wives. She did not like having stepchildren. She didn't like that her husband is exactly like her father with so many wives. And she also died in childbirth. Everybody kept dying in childbirth. So she was able to have two children before she died in childbirth with the heir, actually. So She had Male, who was first, and she got to marry into the Harlow family again, rich families marrying into each other. Mabel, her daughter, married into the Trimboli family, also a wealthy family. They had Jillian, who, again, we saw in the vampires, and then Benchi, who married Gracia Vittor. Again, some connections between the wealthy families, and they have 4 kids. So the Trimboli family is all set. I think, yeah, 2 of them are sons. So they're all set. They had another child who ended up being Harlow the third, but they weren't actually able to have any children who lived. So that's what happened there. So Wilmot did get to have the heir, who was Hugo the Fourth. Hugos are so unlucky, I swear. He married Kinborough. Yeah, she died of the plague. He had Hugo the Fifth, but unfortunately, the Hugo line ended with Hugo the Fifth because he married Ellen, and they had 2 children, both of whom passed. The second son of Hugo, the heir, ended up. This line is cursed. Law ended up joining the church. He ruled not to marry. So Bate, the third son, ended up inheriting. So get this, right? We have the dad. He had 2 wives because the first one died. He had 3 wives, all of whom died. He finally has a son, and his son gets to have 3 sons. Everything seems like it's going well, except the first son doesn't have any kids that live. The second son goes to the church. Like, they're so unlucky. So Bate actually is the um, he was raised by his uncle. I think his who was he raised by? I think it was the Harlow family. Yeah. Um, but once his brother lost all his children, he moved back to inherit the title because he was in line. So he moved back into the estate. He was married to Winifred, and they have 4 kids, but their only son is actually his affair child, which we will see in our main branch, an affair child with our main branch. So the only son that's inheriting this is not actually a legitimate son, and he is so far married Felice. They have a child. We'll see how that goes. I mean, if it doesn't, like this line is done because the nobility titles aren't going to be inherited by women at this time. Oh boy. Anyway, Melanie looks like she's in the church. But yes, it's this line is cursed. The line of Hugo is cursed. With his third wife, died. They had 1 child, Genevieve, who married again into the Harlow family. There's all sorts of inbreeding and families marrying each other back then because it was important for them to keep their connections. She married into the Payne family, also very wealthy. Their first son died, but their second son lived. So, yay, Vincent and Sybil are currently married. We'll see what happens with their future children. Now, still with the first wife here. Oh my gosh. Still with the first wife. This child died. This child died. We're not worried about those 2. We had William, who actually left for Italy and married Madalena. They were both very studious, and they met at the library or something. They only had 1 son, who was then William, also died of the plague. He married Beatrice, whose drama will come up in the main branch as well. Her father was murdered. So, um, you know, we'll find out more about that in the main branch. They have 2 children. Joan will come up in the main branch, and John, who ended up dying in an accident. So that line also died out. I mean, like Christiana has plenty of bright spots here that I'm not worried about. Plus, they're vampires, so they'll live forever. But I mean, how many men are making it to the end of this line? These 2 who aren't even part of the Bennett line. It's literally like it's him. Yeah, it's him. Are you Bennett's? Okay, they are, but actually, well, we'll get into this in a second. So, with his second wife, Mabel, he had Maggie, who married into the Dubois family, and none of those kids lived. Then he had Robert, who married Royce. Oh my gosh, Royce. Royce became, Royce was actually the mistress of the first Harlow that we talked about, who was married to Margaret. That was the mistress he brought in to have sons. And she's a mess. So she actually was able to make her son the heir because Margaret left with the real heir. And then she ended up getting with Robert, who was younger than her and who had, a lot of money. And um, she hated Margaret, so she married his brother. He actually, it was really weird because she was hoping that her husband would become the heir because things weren't going well in the other family, but she ended up dying like immediately after getting married, and then Robert II was born after she died. A ghost baby? Maybe. A glitch? Definitely. But he actually couldn't have any children. But he didn't know that. His wife, Marguerite, who brought her lover, her personal butler, into the home, she had 5 kids with her butler. Two of them survived. Well, one of them ended up surviving. But it's interesting because so all of the Bennett family, because this line died out really quickly too. Roger and his wife had 2 kids, and they both passed. But so this is the only other male Bennett line. So we have the one over here, which is an illegitimate child. But then we come over here, he's also an illegitimate child. So there is no actually real like Bennett bloodline. He's not even a Bennett. So at least this illegitimate child over here is a Bennett, but this guy isn't. But he has 4 sons. So will they be able to inherit? Probably not. I mean, this is kind of far away in the. I mean, I guess they could. We'll have to see what happens if this falls apart. We'll see. We'll see, Clement. Anyway, his father's still alive. No, I don't actually think his father is still alive. I just forgot to change the color of that picture. I should do that. I should write that down. Eugene, because he's not in the tree. I just added him so that I could have a father listed here. Anyway, they have 4 sons, so they're all set. Now, let's get to our main household. I know, this is the part you're excited about. We had Alice, who was going to be married off to a rich man by her parents, but she didn't want to. She fell in love with Milo, the gardener. They ran away from home and got a farm. Unfortunately, she died after having her second child, after her first child did not live. We have a history of bad luck of having only one child that lives or not having any sons who live, etc. That's going to be a common problem for us. So, anyway, Milo again was a gardener. He fell in love with her. They made it work. He was trying to raise Agnes alone, but his sister in law, Christiana, helped. She ended up dying, but he didn't even make it to see his daughter become a teenager, which is why Christiana had to come back. So they both died pretty young. It was really unfortunate. But Agnes, 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 I love Agnes so much. I love her so much. She never knew her mother. She did remember Christiana. Unfortunately, her father died while she was pretty young, so she really didn't have anyone. It was really tough. She was all alone because Christiana left immediately after she became a teen. She ended up meeting Eric at church, and she got a crush on him, and they were able to marry. She completed the freelance botanist aspiration. Eric used to be a part of like a pirate ship. His family was, but after he had a brush with death, he realized that thieving wasn't worth his life, so he became a knight instead. He was struck by lightning. We're just not in good luck anywhere. But they did have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. Let's work our way backwards. Um, Margaret, again, married into the Vittora family. Randy just died of the plague. Tora, 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 Tora. Tora, well, actually, maybe we do need to start over here because I feel like I have to explain Tora's story through the main guy. Anyway, Bjorn married Berger and they opened an orphanage together after going on the sea for a while. That was really nice. Revna actually, so if you remember Margaret's son who became a priest, way over here, him, Revna actually fell in love with him and ended up having his baby, but obviously that was bad because they weren't married. And so Dante Big, who was the Mabel, not Mabel's, yeah, Mabel's son, I believe. Yeah, Mabel, who married Hugo after they both were widowed. She ended up, Dante married her. He was older than her, but he he was a good guy and he wanted to help her out and he also needed a wife, so he did the right thing. Agnes was the affair child there. She was named after Agnes, obviously. Um, I think she is elsewhere on here. Yeah, we'll get back to her. And their son didn't survive. No one survived over here. So, all right, let's talk about Milo, our main branch. So Milo found Cecilia in the woods. There she is. And he decided to help her. They fell in love, but her mysterious past was a point of contention. One day she was arrested. So what happened was Cecilia was like the playmate of that other woman who married William II over here, Beatrice's playmate. And it was hard. The Beatrice's father did make a move on her, and she turned down his advances, and it ended up getting physical, and she accidentally killed him. So that's why she ran away. And so once Beatrice found out that they were like kind of distantly related and she heard about her, she ratted her out and she got arrested. So what Milo did was he gave all his money and his sister Tora's hand in marriage to a lawyer to help her the get out of the crimes. She was given a trial by ingestion. She survived it, and she was able to go back home. So they were able to work it out and get to be together again and have more children together. So that was Tora's thing, is that she was married off to Judd, who was a widower. He wanted someone to take care of his daughter. So she had a stepdaughter, and Rowena lost her mother, but she had kind of an evil stepmother in Tora, and then Tora killed her husband to take everything and pinned it on Rowena, and Rowena ran away and actually met Dyken, who was a knight of the Axtell family. And the Axtell family is the family that Cecilia was initially serving. So she ended up getting married to John Axtell, and they got all the money, the Axtell family, and her stepmother was arrested. But because Tora was like, a rich wife or whatever, she just was sent to the monastery. She actually died of the plague, but Rowena's entire family died of the plague, and then she died in childbirth of the one child, Maybelle. So we'll get to Maybelle in a second. We'll get to her over here. But anyway, that was the drama with the whole thing, except then Cecilia immediately died in childbirth after that. So that was rough. So Milo and Cecilia had one child, which is why obviously he had to remarry. So he remarried to Dorothea, who lost her husband to the plague. She had a son, so that became Milo's stepson. And she was just looking for a husband. He was looking for a wife, and they actually had a really nice relationship, despite coming together for convenience. Um, so that's what happened there. So in that family, we had Nicole. And he, gosh, he's a disaster. Let's come back to him in a second. Isabella wanted a rich husband, so she seduced Clement Bennett, who was somewhere over here. Yeah, she's over here. So Clement Bennett, they are the ones with the four sons. And where's her thing? I lost her. Oh, here she is. Um, she faked a pregnancy in order to get permission to marry him. And then died in childbirth eventually, which is just what you get for lying about your pregnancy to entrap a man. Anyway, then we have Eric Vitor, who we'll get to that in a second because it's going to come up with Joan's story. Everything is all intertwined. Anyway, Milo married Maybelle, and she was raised in the orphanage after her mother died. She married Milo because he was in the orphanage for work. His uncle worked there. His uncle owned it. And so they couldn't have any children, but one day a distant relative of hers appeared, and the family money made it so that she was never married to Milo, and she was able to marry into the Vitor family and be rich. So he got dumped. That was sad. Now with Milo and Hector, my life is so hard. Obviously you've watched the last couple of videos. My life just increasingly gets more difficult. So we have Hector, who was the stepson. So they're not related by blood, which is why it's not that weird that some things happened. Anyway, so not Milo, that's Milo. Nicole ended up, well, okay, so first Hector married Agnes. They had one kid, and neither Agnes nor the kid survived, so that was besides the point. Anyway, then he remarried Anne, who had a lot of children with him. But Nicole ended up having an affair with Anne. And that is where these two children, Austin and Juliana, come from. No, wait, not Austin. Sorry. No, it's Luke and Juliana. Yeah, Luke and Juliana come from, not Austin. Austin is actually Hector's son. So these two affair babies happened, and they have Christina, who ended up marrying an old man in order to get a wealthy life, which, good for her. Um, and yeah, so I think Juliana married Jensen Dutton. So far, they have a daughter, and we'll get to this in a second. So anyway, he had an affair with his sister-in-law, which resulted in those children. And he actually ultimately decided to work on his marriage because he loved Joan, and they were they were really interesting as a couple, I think. I don't really know how else to explain it. They were very interesting. They were having some problems. They were thinking about breaking up, but he actually was like, he was having the affair, and then he was just kind of like, what am I doing? I have to commit myself to my family and my wife. So um, he decided to break that off, and he ended up dying young. He died very young, and oops. And so she ended up finding out about the affair after he died because she was getting close with Anne, and Anne ended up confessing the whole thing, and it was just awful. So she came over here and had just a one night stand with Bate, who's a jerk, and we hate him. But that is how we got the one illegitimate son. So because she was going to keep the baby, but since Bate didn't have any sons and couldn't have a son, he decided he needed hers because otherwise the Bennett family would lose everything. So he decided to take her son, but she tried to hide the baby with her brother, Eric. Eric was trying to help hide the baby, but they found him and they were going to execute him for kidnapping a noble. So he ran away to Forgotten Hollow, where he met and married Alice, which was nice for him. But, Joan, you could have at least helped him out a little bit. Um, Anyway, the baby was still taken away, and that was very difficult for her. We have no sons. And she became an alcoholic, and she ended up telling Hector about his wife's affair, but he didn't leave her, which even made her even more angry. And she just had a bad relationship with all of her children because she ended up totally losing the plot towards the end. She left the tavern and got crushed by a horse. She was just a total disaster at the end. And do I blame her for falling apart with all of that crazy stuff that happened to her? No. Should she have been a better mother? Absolutely. Anyway, so she had three daughters. The last one is now married into the Vittora family. She was the playmate because after Joan died, her children ended up having to go to the orphanage. And that is what ended up happening. Nicolette, all three daughters were sent to the orphanage. Nicolette ended up marrying her quote unquote cousin, but they're not actually related because this was a stepson and they're not, this blood is not connected. So she ended up marrying Austin, who hates children. They had two sons, and I think she ended up dying in childbirth. So there are two sons there. She's gone. He hates children. That family is dysfunctional. Um, Again, Millicent married into the Vittor family. And then we have Cecilia, who was our heir because we go to the firstborn daughter if there are no sons. And after her mother passed, they went to the orphanage. That was actually a really fun thing to play, everybody in the orphanage. I had a really good time doing that. And it was a relief to have someone to take care of them for once. She ended up becoming a midwife, but she married Walter over here. So, sorry, Alexander Walter. He also was in the orphanage because both of his parents died. So they were both in the orphanage together. They fell in love. They decided to be together. And he was a blacksmith and she was a midwife. And gosh, they had four children die in a row. And then he died on his age up while she was pregnant. And then she had the baby, Emmeline, I don't know. And why do I keep choosing names that I can't pronounce for my heirs? Anyway, so she ended up dying in childbirth. So I am so unlucky. My first thought was, okay, well, give me the illegitimate son then, because my initial thoughts were, oh, I'm going to choose between Cecilia and our illegitimate son to decide who's going to become our heir. Sorry, my headset died, so I'm trying to think of what just happened, what I was saying. Um, So they both died, and so I was initially trying to choose between Cecilia and was it Luke, her brother, her illegitimate brother, to decide who was the heir. So I was like, okay, I guess we're going back to him to be the heir. But this guy, whoosh whoosh, this guy dies at war. Like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take him home from war early so that we can have him be our heir and take care of this baby. Maybe no, he died at war. So I was thinking about what would happen next. So Austin hates children. I don't think he would take another child in. He probably would just leave it be. But technically, Nicolette would be the next heir if Emmeline died. And so since she died, her son, Tomkin, would be our heir. We'll have to see if we go with Tomkin. Maybe Emmeline will survive. If she does, she's our heir. We have gotten lucky with one surviving heir before. So we'll see. But since Nicolette's dead, she wasn't going to take care of the baby. So Millicent got notified that her niece was, um, abandoned. Where is she? Here she is. She has one son, Charles, with her vampire husband. I don't think he's a vampire, though, no. And so these three moved to Henford on Bagley to take care of Emmeline. And, hopefully Emmeline will survive and we'll be able to continue this direct line. Otherwise, we will go back over to Nicolette's son, Tomkin, for our heir. Um, so, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I cannot believe so many people died so quickly that I needed. Maybe Emmeline will survive. Maybe I'll get lucky. I hope so. Oh my gosh. Okay, so anyway, that's what's going on here. Everyone's dead. Just everyone's dead. So we're playing with what's her name and her family, vampire families, and our small child Emmeline, Millicent. We're playing with Millicent and her family and Emmeline right now. I don't know what's going to happen, to be completely honest, you guys. I have no idea. Obviously, Tomkin is next in line. I kind of wish it was Millicent's family because whatever, but we can make their disaster of a family work, I guess. Okay, so I know that was a lot, but basically we have one baby that might live, and if the baby lives, we're okay. Um, if not, we're going back over to the other side of the tree, and we'll see what happens. I'm kind of excited. At first, I was just so overwhelmed. Honestly, this was a great place to take a break because I was so overwhelmed with everything that had just happened. So, it was a good place to take a break, and I'm excited to get back to it, and I think we'll be okay. So, I hope Emmeline survives. I guess it's okay if she doesn't. We'll see. And then also, I checked that everything was updated for infants. I think I did update. Um, Yeah, I added baby infant into here. There was, though, I noticed when I went back through this, there was a event that I don't think was there initially, unless I just straight up didn't see it. This 1381 Peasants Revolt, because I have the 1380 poll tax, right? I don't even think I did anything for that, did I? I don't remember. Anyway, um, I must have. I can't remember. Let me go back. Hold on. Make big. Wish, 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 wish. Okay. Yeah, poll tax. Your main household does a one-time fee of 1,500, but now it says 5,000. I think this document has been updated since I started playing. I'm not going to worry about that, but I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to play the Peasants' Revolt. Let's see. 1,500 blah blah blah. 1,500 rebels were killed in the Peasants' Revolt. Pick one side household family of your choice. They are now rebels. Any teen to elder is automatically tracked down and executed. The babies are now orphans. I feel like we should still do that. Let's still do that. Um, oh, the war is ending. Yeah, look, everybody died. Peasant revolt. Kill teen through elder of one side household. Maybe we should pick who we do that for now. What side household should we pick? Did they have any kids? They do. Um, no, they're not peasants though, so they wouldn't. Should I pick Austin and make his kids orphans? They're not peasants. They're not peasants. I don't know. Who should we pick? Maybe I'll think about it. Maybe the Trombolis. I don't know. Everybody's got such young kids. I don't really want to kill them all off. Clarice is supposed to get married soon, I think. I don't know. I'll think about it. No, I can't decide right now. There's already too much going on. Okay. So we'll get back from the war next time. Roll for your currently enlisted Sims. I don't even think I have any enlisted Sims, do I? No, I don't. Okay, well, that doesn't matter then. Okay. Yeah, Maud and Clarice are going to marry. Evelina is going to marry soon. What is going on next year? Bench. Oh gosh, look at all these kids aging up. Oh, Caleb. Okay. Okay. Oh gosh, Emily. Okay. Oh wait, I didn't add infant as a thing. Um. Okay. Let me insert one column to the right. Born. Is that the same color as that? Yeah. Okay, we can't do that. What color did I pick for infant? The purple. Infant. Okay. So I'm actually going to need to move. Shoot. But now the. I don't know. How do I fix this? Okay. Babies are 1. Babies used to be what, 6? Who was born this year? Yeah, 6. They used to be 6, but now they're 1. So if she was. Okay, so it actually still adds up to 6. So they should still be becoming toddlers at this time. But Emmeline should already be an infant. So should all of these people. Infant, start. Emmeline. You know what? They made it past the 1 day. I'm going to let them become infants for free, also because I'm scared, and Emmeline's going to roll anyway this year. Benedict 2. Joffrey. Who is unnamed? Gnora. Unnamed didn't survive, obviously. Okay. All right. So I'm going to make these infants. They would have already survived their infant roll, so I'm letting them keep it because I'm terrified. Anyway, so we'll be rolling for Emmeline to become a toddler next time. Oh gosh, I'm scared. Okay, it'll be fine. Oh my gosh, and Millicent? Not Millicent. What if she dies? My life is so hard. All right. Look forward to it. I'm excited to get back into it. So let's do this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.